This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream, the stream I do on Sundays, because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. At least I hope it's beautiful where you are. Before we get into the meat of the show, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Why, it's the Zardax. Sounds like a wizard from an 80s kids cartoon show or something. Noah Asensio, good morning. Mike Savage, good morning. TC, good morning. Dax Orion. I already said it, but other ways. I'll do it officially. Good morning. Tyrannus Alexandrius Tremirlich, good morning. Who else is here? TC, oh boy. Rotten Corpse, good morning. Derek LaRue, good morning. Keeverdam, good morning. The Magister, good morning. Chicago Mike, good morning. And then chat jump because, of course, it did. Who else is here? Blakester, good morning. Somnambual Nation, good morning. Bishop, good morning. Derek LaRue, again. Oh my gosh, Derek LaRue, thank you so much again for your consistent and ridiculous generosity. I never know exactly what else to say, but thank you. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're having a good Sunday. I hope this is entertaining and or informative. Infotainment. That's what I do. Arc 210, good morning. Ryan R, if I didn't already say so, good morning. Shadowclaw, good morning. Resolute Germ, good morning. Bridget, good morning. Simon Willikins, good morning. Robert Pincus, good morning. D5280, good morning. Brittany Holland, good morning. Zan Wild, good morning. And I hope that's everybody. If I miss you, if you are lurking, if you are in the future. Oh, A2P, good morning. Did I get everybody? I hope I did. If I missed you again, I apologize. Hopefully I'll spot you in the meantime and say good morning. But with all, Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. So yeah, I came across this. I was kind of, I didn't know what I was going to do for today's show up until like last night. I didn't have nothing had jumped out at me. I didn't have any great ideas about anything. I was kind of like, well, I could talk about the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, but I guess we've already kind of covered that. For a brief time, I thought maybe I'll just talk about Vampire the Masquerade for an hour. And then I thought it'd be there's so much to cover. I'd have to like pick one particular thing, and then I'd probably bore half the audience. So anyway. And besides which, you've come to expect a certain something from me on a Sunday. And as a consequence of that, just by chance, I came across this interesting titled video from a consulting firm. DEI Deniers. Ooh, is that like, I don't believe they exist? Or like DEI exists? Or I'm resistant to DEI? I'm assuming it's the latter, but you never know. But yes, we have two, as far as I know, I haven't looked too far into this. We have two business and or DEI consultants, and they're going to talk to us about DEI denial or skepticism or resistance or something. And I'm presuming, I don't know, but I'm presuming we'll be given some guidance on what to do if you came across a DEI denier. So, hypothetically speaking, what would happen to me if I were an employee in a company that decided to implement a DEI program? I guess we'll find out as we go. Let's see. Just checking a couple things before I get in here. A couple other hellos. Bishop X, good morning. Scanner Daffley, good morning. And again, I hope I didn't miss anybody, but if I did, I will try to make up for it later. Either way, this clocks in at just under 29 minutes. So I'll be going for an hour and a half in real time at the most. And so this comes from TESO, which is Teach Educators and Scholars Organization. Oh, so does this have something to do with schools? Oh boy. Might get the best of both worlds on this one. All right. So anyway, I cut off the first part of this because it had some music to it, and I don't know if that's copyrighted or anything. So it'll be silent for a second. Mike R, good morning. If I missed you, it's only because my aim was off. And 2T Sweet, good morning. All right, let's get into it. Let's find out what happens with a DEI denier.
Welcome back. We're so glad you were able to join us again. I'm Tanya.
And I'm Erica.
And as we've mentioned, this is our DEI podcast series.
Yay.
The title's Why Is This So Hard? Shining Through the Shadow of Resistance.
Yeah.
Why is this so hard? Shining through the shadow of resistance. Okay, so we're putting a very... all right, sounds like a very moral distinction. Very moral distinction. All right.
And today we have a topic for you that really kind of speaks to this resistance piece. DEI deniers.
Ooh, does that make me part of the resistance? Oh boy, am I on the same team as Poe Dameron and Rey Palpatine? I mean, Palpatine. Am I part of the resistance?
So, how many of you saw Encanto? So you saw it?
Yes.
So it took me a while before I saw it. I actually saw it on a plane.
Wait, the Pixar movie? Okay, I can't wait to find out how a Pixar movie moves into this.
I don't remember where I was going, but I was like, okay, I have to watch this movie. Everybody keeps saying you have to watch it.
Uh-huh.
And I loved it. For one, it was representative of Latino culture in Disney.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the first or second, maybe, of its kind. And so...
wait. First or second of its kind being a production by Disney that was representative, quote unquote, in some way of Latino culture? You mean aside from Coco, aside from, I'm going back in time here, the Three Caballeros, or even Zorro? I mean, fictional depictions of Latino culture or extrapolations thereof are not exactly new things at Disney, but maybe you're just talking about Pixar movies. I guess aside from Coco, maybe it was the second Latino culture-based Pixar movie. Anyway,
well, I really enjoyed it, but there was something in the movie, and I would hear about this prior to actually watching it, where they were like, we don't talk about Bruno. That was the thing. They were like, it's like, we don't talk about Bruno. I was like, what is this whole thing about not talking about Bruno? Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and it just first of all, the song was charming.
Yes.
And
okay, I haven't seen the movie, all right, but I have heard the song. And if you listen to the lyrics in context, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody in the chat can correct me, of course, my loose understanding is that Bruno was like the black sheep of the family, and he brought bad luck or something. I don't know if he ended up turning out to be the villain or a presumed villain who turned out to be a good guy kind of thing. I haven't seen the movie, but that's why they don't talk about Bruno, because he's like that, that skeezy uncle that you don't want to bring up. That was my understanding. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard the song. So
just sort of the whole concept that, okay, we don't talk about this,
Yeah.
And so it was just so appropriate when we're thinking about, being in the space where there are those who, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about racism.
Whoa. Okay. Somebody in the chat correct me. Okay. The song had to do with a character who was either evil or presumed to be evil or had some kind of like bad luck around him or something. All right. So there was some justification on the family's part to not bring up this member of the family, right? Something like that. So, but this is their segue. Their segue. Okay. All right.
We don't talk about inequities. We don't talk about discrimination. We don't, and in our...
Are you kidding me? Who's we? We don't talk about What business are you in? What is a DEI program? What is the entire infrastructure of DEI over the last 10 years at least, if not a repetitive, incessant, constant berating over discrimination and inequality and exclusivity, etc.? We don't talk about it. I always hear this. We don't talk about the history of the founders of this country. Everybody talks about it. Nobody's stopping you from talking about it. Here's where the discomfort comes in. It's in the accusatory nature of it. It's in this anti-racism. Racism is the universal constant. Everything is racist all the time, every day. And you have to constantly apologize for it and recognize it in yourself, yada, yada, yada. That's the part that people shy away from. It's the accusation of wrongdoing or wrongthink without any evidence. That's the resistance. You can talk about discrimination if there's actually discrimination, but is there? Or is there simply a disparity in demographics? The gap between which you are filling with the accusation.
Our society, race has been so taboo, like to even mention, there's this episode of Seinfeld where there's an African-American character and they whisper the fact that he's Black. They say he's Black, actually pretty funny, but.
Wait, it's funny? Oh, why is it funny? Let's think about that for a second. Why is that funny? Yeah, just think about it. We were not allowed to talk about race. Are you kidding me?
But it really speaks to sort of this kind of societal trend to just not talk about race.
Right.
This is okay. I'm sorry for stopping every 10 seconds here, but every statement out of their mouths so far is 100% opposed to reality. You cannot. Okay, maybe I just live in a fish bubble. Or fishbowl, obviously, possibly so. But no one is stopping anybody these days from talking about race, from guilt tripping over race, from instilling race and racism into education, into business, into the law over and over and over again. It's 100% wrong. 100%.
And I think this kind of goes into, our topic today, which is like, deniers, DEI deniers, people who deny the need to talk about or even really the existence of issues with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
That's not my resistance. My resistance to it is the inherent necessity of discrimination in order to, quote unquote, balance the scales of demographic split in a particular environment, whether we're talking about a college campus or a office space or whatever else. That's my resistance to it. You want to talk about race? Okay, I guess it depends on how you mean to talk about it. But here's the thing, and I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say this over the course of my life. If you want to diminish racism in this country, in the world, or whatever else, the only avenue is to make race, skin color, as relevant to the assessment of a person's character as their hair color or their eye color. Okay, you have to make it an irrelevancy when discussing people. That's the only avenue. Racism will always exist in some way, shape, or form, right? It's like murder. You're never going to eliminate murder from the world, no matter how terrible it is by any rational standard, right? So someone out there is going to be racist, sure, but the only way you're going to diminish this is to stop divvying people up on the basis of their skin color. Stop giving a value in character or worth or life experience or anything else on the basis of skin color. That's what's going to do it. That's what's going to diminish its impact or its relevance. But you guys who push this DEI stuff are not helping the situation. That's why.
That's what DEI stands for.
Yes.
For those of you who are new to this DEI world, that's what it is.
Yes.
And we also do work around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Belonging, well, it should be diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion, and then you can have Debbie. Imagine if they did a Debbie program and like Debbie had a mascot, like a friendly little cartoon lady or something. I still don't understand why nobody's gone after trying to brand this as Debbie yet.
Yes.
So we have to include that as well. So that some people may say DEIB,
Yes.
because they're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Or they might say JEDI because it's justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Or they might say D&I, like it used to be diversity and inclusion. And then they added the E, now they're adding the B, and every time they add a new word to the specialization of the advocates and officials in this whole thing, they are trying to distance themselves from the original sin of that first step. The first step in diversity is to discriminate. But as long as you keep adding on extra concepts that by themselves have no inherently cringy value to them necessarily, depending on how you go about them, yeah, you can try to distance yourself from that first step, which is where all the problems reside.
And so, with that movie Encanto and the whole thing about, not talking about Bruno, it's because Bruno knew some things that made people uncomfortable.
Yes.
And people don't want to be uncomfortable. He could see things that other people couldn't see. He understood things. So he had a lens that, folks didn't have.
Yes.
And so he kind of got banished a little bit from his community because he could reveal some things that people didn't want revealed.
Right.
And I thought that was just such a good movie.
You're not okay. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. I'm telling stories out of school. Okay, this is your analogy. Okay, so you have a secret wisdom. DEI has a secret wisdom that nobody else can see. Right? It can read the tea leaves like no one else, and that frightens people. That kind of insight, that kind of revelation is scary to the unindoctrinated. Okay, that's what you're going with? Okay.
So many levels.
On so many levels. And when we think about, DEI deniers, there are people in our society and in our community, not us, of course.
Not us.
No, not us.
Who don't want to talk about
That's right.
Bruno.
Right.
I don't want to give a value to your skin color. You're right. Or your gender or your orientation. I don't assess you as a person, your character, your lifestyle, your life potential. None of it means anything to me. Who are you means more to me than what are you. And it's the what that DEI focuses on first and foremost. So yeah, I don't have any interest in talking to you about an irrelevancy like the melanin count in your skin. I don't. It's meaningless. It is functionally and mechanically meaningless to finding out who you are. Unless, of course, you participate in racial identitarianism. In that case, I have at least some idea of your character.
And what they really don't want to talk about, were you going to say that?
Is race.
Yes.
They really don't want to talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it.
So this manifests itself in a few different ways, right? So the first thing, and we hear this a lot, and you may have even heard it, or maybe you said it yourself, but I don't see color.
Oh, look at that. I don't see color. Yeah. It's not a literal statement of ability. It is not assessing someone on the basis of their skin. You know who really, 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 really likes to talk about race? There's a word for people that really, really, really want to talk about race.
Right?
Yes.
I don't see
when
color.
I hear that.
You hate when you hear that. Oh, so the principle of not valuing someone on their skin color is something you hate to hear. Okay, well, good to know.
I don't see color. So, okay, admittedly, when people say I don't see color, like, what is it that they're trying to say? Do you think?
They mean well. I do think they mean well. I think what they're trying to say is, I just see people and I want people to be treated the same, equally, nicely. I'm not making any distinctions. It doesn't matter to me. I don't really care what you are. That's what I hear a lot.
Yes.
And you inherently disbelieve that. Okay, well, I have to ask, and I mean this sincerely when people say this. What would you like people to do? I mean, what would you prefer people do in society when it comes to race? If you're truly against racism, how do you get past that? How do you move away from an ideology that values someone's character or worth or whatever else on the basis of race? What component has to be removed from that ideology to get past it? Well, putting a value on race, seeing race as something that is a signal to me to have an estimation of what kind of person you are or where you fit in society or something, right? So if not the principle of quote unquote color blindness, what would you have people do? If this is so appalling to you, if this makes you cringe, and even when you're like taking a step back and saying, well, I think they mean well, and then you list off all the things that you know it means fundamentally, well, if not those things, what do you want people to do? What would you prefer happen?
And then what I say to people is when you say you don't see color, what you're really saying is you don't see me.
No, because I am not a racial identitarian. Okay, you are not your skin color. Unless you're going to tell me that I should know something inherently about you simply on the basis of your skin color. And there is a name for people that assess another person first and foremost on the basis of their skin color. I don't know if you know what that word is, but if that's how you want people to see you, you want me to see you as a black woman, right? First and foremost, that's what you're telling me right now. You want me to assess you and to signal in my brain before anything else, before I know your name, before I know anything about you, your interests, your likes, your dislikes, that you are a black woman. That should be first and front in my mind. Why? What does that tell me about you? Nothing. You could be a real estate agent. You could be a serial killer, right? You could like cats. You could like dogs. You could like neither. And you'd still be black. But what would I know about you on the basis of that? Nothing. The only thing I can draw from that statement is you want me to assess you on aesthetics. Is that the kind of world you want to live in? Because that's the one you're promoting right now.
Because my color is very much a part of who I am.
No, it is not. It is an aesthetic element to your biological makeup. It does not determine anything about who you are. So you two are exactly the same then, right? Because if the only element I'm supposed to be looking at first and foremost is your skin color, well, then you two must have the same ideas. You must live the same life. You must believe in the same things. You must dislike the same things and on, right? Or is there something more, I don't know, unique about you beyond the aesthetic?
And i.e. my identity, which is another conversation that we'll probably talk about at some point, but we'll tie it into today's conversation because you kind of can't help but talk about it.
Not. I guess not.
But ultimately, like, you don't see me. So now, who do you know that, I mean, okay, maybe there are people.
Yeah.
Who do you know that really wants to not be seen?
John Cena. What was his name? Griffith or Griffin? Whatever the name of the Invisible Man was. Who does not want to be seen? I don't know. Agoraphobics. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be seen.
Ninjas do not want to be seen.
I mean, there are people who are shy and they're not looking to be the center of attention. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you're in a room full of people.
Yeah.
You've got ideas. You have opinions. And
these are determined in what way by your skin color? But what?
Nobody wants to hear them.
Yes.
Well, okay, if we're talking about opinions and ideas, my first question would be, are the opinions and or ideas germane to the conversation taking place in the room? Are they good ideas? Are they well-founded opinions? You're not talking about someone's merit or thoughts. You're talking about someone's skin color. What is, except unless, of course, you associate one with the other.
And so when we say, I don't see color, right? We're really wiping all of that out.
Right.
What?
We're really wiping all of that out.
Right.
What you're, if I don't see color, I am then vetoing your ideas and opinions, because obviously your ideas and opinions, the quality thereof, are determined by your skin color. Is that how it works? Oh, okay.
And the other piece of that is that it's not true. Of course you see color.
Of course you do.
Of course you see color.
Of course you see color. Of course you see color. Because it's not a literal statement. It's a principle. The Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech. It's a principle. It's not a literal. Hey, caramba.
Of course you see the different shades that people come in. Of course you see the different complexions and the different hairstyles and hair textures. Of course you see that. Just like you see their height, just like you see that what they're wearing. Of course you see that.
Well, the wearing part, I mean, if someone willingly puts on some clothes and they're trying to tell the world something about their style or something, that's different. But their height, all of these elements, save for the clothing part, that are not under any control by the individual, and again, tell you nothing about who they are, their character, nothing. You're right. They are all irrelevant. Why are you trying to make it relevant?
Absolutely.
So, in our society, this idea that in polite company, we don't speak about race, I think it has really held us back.
It has.
Oh, yeah. Right. Making relevant something that is irrelevant. That's progress. That's progress, guys. We really, 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 really need to talk more about race in polite society. Yeah, we need to make it more important. More important. That's held us back, guys. Yeah.
Has. There's a book, Debbie Irving wrote the book, Waking Up White and Finding Myself in the Story of Race. And, in that particular book, she talks a lot about, just this topic. Yeah. She was socialized as a white woman to not have conversations about race as a child.
Yeah.
And so
socialized because why? What was the motivation behind it? I mean, I don't know. I haven't read the book. I don't know if our speakers are going to tell us, but you haven't given a quality or an explanation as to what the thinking was behind that. What was the justification to not talk about race? It's hard for me to, judge that one way or the other.
It was taboo. And so she's not alone. I think there's a whole group of people out there who were socialized to not talk about race.
Why? Was it an effort to try to make it an irrelevancy? Or is there something sinister behind it? Why? Why do you need to talk about race? What is the value in talking about race? And I know some of my artistic friends out there who hear the word value when talking about color schemes are going to start, twitching a little bit, but I can't avoid it. What is the benefit of talking about race? What was the motivation behind not making race a subject of discussion? You have to tell us this. You're just assuming that talking about race is an inherent good.
Because to talk about it meant that you had to acknowledge something that perhaps you weren't comfortable acknowledging.
Or you're acknowledging something that is irrelevant. What? Why do you go for the worst possible interpretation of that action? Right? Why do you assume something sinister? I mean, my thought was, when I was growing up, You didn't talk about race because it was irrelevant, because talking about race was the thinking of the olden days. Talking about someone's race as though it meant anything is how the people in the 50s talked, is how the people talked before the Civil Rights Act. Moving beyond making race any kind of topic of conversation about a person was to remove that as an element of assessing them as a person. That was my perspective on the whole thing. So what is your theory on it? And how is it sinister?
Yeah. And I think it prevents us from giving kids the language to talk about race.
Right.
So then we get into the supermarket and a kid says, mommy, she's Black, right? And everybody gets embarrassed. And, it's okay, right? So we are not giving kids sort of the language or even the permission to talk about race, to talk about culture.
Yeah, why is that embarrassing? Well, because you're pointing out an irrelevancy, right? People get embarrassed because you're effectively saying that that person is so different that they have to be pointed out as different. Whereas you tell the kid, it's like, some people have blonde hair, some people have brown hair, some people have dark skin, some people have lighter skin. It doesn't mean anything. And move on with your day. Right? People are cringing at someone being pointed out for something that is irrelevant. What kind of world do you want to live in?
Or to even, have questions about it, which is totally okay. And so
Absolutely.
Kiever Dam in the chat here. Sorry guys, I'm so focused on this. Let me go to you guys real quick. Kiever Dam, chocolate people. Yes, that was my sister's reaction the first time she saw a Black person when she was like 2 or 3 or something. I remember this so clearly. She saw someone in our neighborhood who was Black, and she was like, chocolate people. And that is as far as it ever went. And it was the most innocent, whatever. And then she just moved on and went back to playing with her blocks or whatever. It's like, they're done. Nothing else. And you move on with your life. It means nothing. Means nothing. Mike Savage, they want to be back in the 50s and 60s because they want to be heroes. That's one theory. I mean, everybody wants to be part of something bigger. Everybody wants to be the one that saves the day. In everyone's heart beats the desire to be the hero, right? In some way, shape, or form. And of course, depending on how that yearning and instinct is leveraged, it can be used for good or bad. But everybody wants to be like at the forefront of a movement. Excuse me. Dax Orion. Oh, sorry. Zardax. Maybe they don't want to be seen as people. Maybe they want to be seen as Homo superior. No, that's the X-Men. That's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Come on now. Let's see. Who else is here? Anything else? SWD. Time to re-educate that toddler. Yeah, I guess so. I guess my 3-year-old sister scribe just had it wrong in that very innocent and adorable interpretation of the world, and then she just moved on. Yeah, I know, it's terrible.
I think when we, that whole colorblind, as educators, we've heard a lot, I treat all my students the same, right? It doesn't matter if you're Black, white, or purple. That used to drive me crazy too.
Because you inherently knew they were lying?
There are no purple people, so let's not do that, right?
Right.
There are no purple people. That's your offense to that statement? Now come on, there are no purple people. That Really? So not only do you know that they are lying in some way, shape, or form, but your grand exception is that there are no purple people. Okay.
It's not kind of, let's not belittle it.
Right.
Belittle the importance of race. Hey, you know what? Let's all let us all belittle the importance of race. How about we all do that? Imagine if everybody on the planet belittled the importance of race just for a day or a week. If we all just said, it's irrelevant. Imagine what better a world we would live in. No. You're as far as I'm concerned, you are 180 degrees off on this. Let us all belittle the importance of race.
Let's not lump us all in this, category of.
Let's not lump us all. You are the ones that are saying I need to see you as a color. Do not lump us all. Oh my gosh. Oh, shit. Oh no.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Just keep going.
And the other thing is that it makes the idea of different colors absurd.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. You're not. You're saying all the right things right now as though they are bad things. Keep going.
Right. When you say I don't care if you're purple or polka dot. There are no purple. There are no polka dot people. So
except in the animation world.
Except in the animation world.
Which you brought up as your main point of segue into this whole thing in the first place. Yeah. Keep going with the idea that skin color is irrelevant. Skin color is irrelevant. Keep going.
Right. So when we do that, I think it just sort of makes the idea that there are different colors and that there are differences ridiculous.
No. It doesn't make difference ridiculous. It makes valuing difference ridiculous. That's the separation. Putting a marker on difference as saying something about the person. That's the difference. Wow.
Right.
And that's offensive in and of itself.
Oh,
it is. Very much so.
Yeah. So, I think kind of giving kids the language and giving them the permission to not only notice, but to have conversations about it. I think that's the real equity. That's the real work.
What? That's the real equity? That's the real equity. Training children to see each other as colors first and foremost. That's the equity. Thank you, Chicago Mike. A Sheb Woolley song would disagree about there being purple people. I know. There was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. Well, see, now it's sort of like I shot an elephant in my pajamas. Was the people eater purple, or did it only eat purple people? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
Right. And getting us to a place where we are totally okay with having conversations about race and culture.
We say a lot of times, because we do a lot of training with organizations, we will often say that, these conversations that we're going to have, because we do a lot with racial equity.
I am shocked.
May be uncomfortable.
Oh, may be uncomfortable
for some people.
Some people. What is the general? I don't know. Shade of the people who are uncomfortable.
And that's okay.
Oh, it's okay to be uncomfortable. All right. So if I have some kind of resistance to that idea of divvying people up on the basis of race and putting race at the forefront of how I'm supposed to assess people and see people and so on, that's okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that my perspective is welcomed.
Yeah.
See that discomfort. This is something that we'll say to them. See that discomfort as an opportunity for growth.
Oh, right. I need to grow away from not assessing people on skin color. I need to grow towards seeing people as a skin color. Okay.
And so now if we are, like, I see myself as a lifelong learner. So, I'm always learning.
Wait, do you? Do you see yourself? How am I supposed to see you again first? And does that mean that? Okay, I'm going all over the place now.
If people begin to see themselves as lifelong learners, and they are in conversations that make them uncomfortable, now they can begin to say, maybe there's an opportunity for me to learn. What is it that I don't know?
Yeah.
What is it that I am not aware of
Yes.
that might actually, be something that I can be open to, rather than seeing these conversations about race as being, taboo. Like, we don't talk about Bruno, we don't
Yes.
talk about race. But there's also, I think, something underneath why people are uncomfortable.
Does discomfort equate to a deficiency of knowledge or understanding? I guess that'd be my question. I've heard this many times from many different advocates of DEI or uncomfortable conversations or courageous conversations. Glenn Singleton. Does discomfort inherently indicate a deficiency of knowledge or understanding? Because if I am sitting in a room and someone is giving me a lecture on how the earth is flat, I'm going to feel a bit uncomfortable. So does that mean that the lecturer is correct? That I am deficient in knowledge or understanding because I feel uncomfortable with the information or the philosophy that's being thrown at me? Okay, simply being uncomfortable, it does not bolster your argument for being correct. It doesn't. All right, you have to come to the table with facts and evidence, compare, contrast, and so on. So yeah, just talking about race when I've been brought up to make race an irrelevancy when I'm interacting with people or looking at people, I try to be the change I want to see. No pun intended, but I'll take it in that way. So yeah, if I have someone coming into the room who's a racial identitarianist who is trying to push me to believe that I need to look at people as a color, yeah, I'm going to be uncomfortable. Not because you're right, but because I fundamentally disagree with you.
Yes.
So maybe we need to dig a little deeper here in this conversation. We got a little time.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons is like the lack of safety. I think sometimes people feel like if I ask a question or if I bring it up, will they think I'm racist?
Mm-hmm.
Or will they think I'm some kind of, really bad person?
Well, you're coming to the table positioning yourselves first and foremost as racial Puritans of some way, shape, or form, right? You have the knowledge and the wisdom about race that everybody else lacks, right? So if I ask a question, if I put any kind of doubt or skepticism, if I show that I am lacking in the knowledge or I'm deficient enough that I have to ask a question about this subject, why wouldn't I suspect that you or someone else in the room might decide that therefore I'm a racist? When the entire thrust of your industry is to presume that everybody's racist to begin with, and you're going to teach them how to be anti-racist, which is in fact to be racist. If it's the same thing as with any of the political strife and divisions we've seen over the last, let's just say 6 years in particular. If you're not fully on board, then you are suspect, right? Any showing that you are not with Team Trump, or you're not with Team Biden, or you're not on one side or the other, any sign of weakness puts you in a position of potentially being a pariah. That's the world we live in right now, and that is the atmosphere that is built when you have these uncomfortable conversations. So what is the alternative except to suspect you might be accused of being a racist when you're the one not wanting to talk about race when you guys talk about race?
It reminds me of a couple months ago, we were at a training and we were doing an activity and we said, okay, you have to line up against the wall.
Oh, well, line up against that wall, guys. I swear it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Just get up against that wall. Put your backs against the wall, everybody.
We just said, we were trying to sort of,
Organize
organize
the group.
Yeah, the group.
Organize the group on the basis of what?
And after this, a woman came up to us and said, I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
And when you say, line up against the wall to someone who's Jewish,
It harkens back to
Yeah.
the Holocaust.
it could be triggering.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, you guys are racists, aren't you? Line up against the wall. Hey, we're gonna have a courageous conversation about race. Now, line up against the wall. Really? I mean, what was my reaction even before I understood that you guys had somebody tell you the connotation of that? But here's the thing, you didn't mean it that way, right? I mean, obviously, with this admission, you're saying that you had absolutely no intention, foreknowledge, thought about that. It was completely innocent. All right. So that lady coming up to you and saying that, I mean, that might be true for her. And certainly there's something to that. Now, how much guilt over this honest flub are you going to carry with you?
And we had no idea.
And no,
How could you have no, okay. I mean, it's not like I'm some kind of World War II scholar or something, right? Or some expert on the Holocaust. But even little old me, come on now.
idea.
No idea.
No idea.
No idea.
But we were so grateful to her. We thanked her.
We
said
did.
that
We
she,
did.
she was a little nervous
Yes,
about.
very hesitant.
Yes, she didn't know if it was okay.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she came up to us
Yes.
because
Uh-huh.
this taught us something that we didn't know.
We didn't.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So you were ignorant, and now you're more enlightened, and you'll never put people up against a wall again. Okay. Yeah. And so, what does that have to do with race?
No. Right.
And there was no part of us that wanted to be offensive.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, so you can be forgiven for just, someone had a reaction to something that was completely unintended. Did she think you were doing it intentionally, some kind of microaggression? I mean, did you know she was Jewish? Yeah, so what? It was a misunderstanding, the end, right?
And yet we know, that this happens
Right.
in society. There's a lot for us to learn.
Yes.
So even though
What?
we do this work, we don't know everything
We don't know
there is to know.
everything. Right.
Oh, no, I believe you there.
There's a lot, and we continue to learn and grow.
What does this have to do with anything? We're not talking about something as relatively ethereal on a visual basis as what someone's religious beliefs are. What? Okay.
And so when we talk about race, so first of all, let's kind of level set on what we mean. I know
Okay.
this isn't a training, but
Oh, it feels like a training. I'm learning a lot about you guys. I don't know that I'm learning anything more about DEI that I didn't already know, but I'm learning a lot about you.
but race is really like a social construct.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. So you're not black? Like, what? Race is a social construct. Oh, okay. So when she said, when the other lady said, I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, purple, but you got offended because there are no purple people. Well, race is a social construct. Well, why couldn't you be a purple person? Why couldn't I be a purple person? I'm sure on different elements of the visual spectrum, I could be a purple person if someone saw a light through a different lens.
So, mankind decided that they wanted to create hierarchy around people's skin color.
Yes.
Well, okay. Yeah. And so shouldn't we, I don't know, move past that kind of thinking instead of making race a part of your identity? Are you even listening to yourselves?
And so America took that ball and they ran with it. I mean, but
Yeah, because no such thing would ever happen in a country where everyone shares a similar skin tone. It would never be the case that any peoples would value one to the other on the basis of how white, how black, how slightly less black, how slightly more white. No, that's never happened before in any other country, ever, forever.
they took it, and they took it to the bank.
Yes, they
Literally.
did. Yes.
When we think about this country's history, we're talking about this country being built on the back of enslaved people.
Yes.
Oh, and who was selling a lot of those slaves away? What was the origination point? Who was profiting off of that at the point of sale? Let's say. Was it oftentimes black people? Was there any enslavement taking place amongst Native American peoples? Maybe slavery is just one of those common, base and barbarous traditions amongst human beings. But okay, yes, slavery happened in America. Oh, did you know we can't talk about that? Nobody wants to talk about that, guys. You're not allowed to talk about that.
So a lot of this country's wealth was built on the backs of people who were enslaved and brought over to this country against their will to work for free in conditions that were inhumane.
Yes.
In the movie Usual Suspects, I love my movies, right?
Well, okay. So first we start with Encanto and Don't Talk About Bruno into DEI. And then we go from slavery to The Usual Suspects. Oh, okay.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, no?
No.
So one of the great lines is something about, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled off was convincing people he wasn't real.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. You're close enough, yes. Kaiser Soze.
And I think that's part of the challenge around race in this country.
That people think slavery didn't exist? Or what?
Is that for whole swaths of people, they just didn't have to think about it. And so when you're forced to think about it, it's like, oh, that's not real. That doesn't happen, right? And
What? No. There is a difference between acknowledging historical fact and then continuing from that, putting a value on someone's race as a matter of your everyday existence. What did slavery do? Okay, what did slavery do? It put a value on someone's skin color, right? I'm sure our speakers would agree with this. Back in the days of slavery, you were less of a human being if you were black than if you were white, correct? Okay. Isn't that a kind of thinking, a philosophy that we now today would see as abhorrent? Yes. So how do you move away from that philosophy? What is the most simply stated, yet apparently difficult to achieve way in which you can move away from that philosophy? I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but okay, keep going.
And so it's this idea of really getting people to understand that, yes, it does exist. Yes, this discrimination based on race does exist.
But it's a social construct. It doesn't really exist. It's just an idea. But now okay.
And though you may have benefited from it, and you did, if you are, not a person of color, if you're white in this country, you have benefited from that privilege in this society.
You haven't benefited from the outgrowth of what was built on the backs of slaves. At this point in history, at this point in time, in the aggregate growth of this country, you haven't in some nascent way benefited from that because of your skin color? Your skin color indemnifies you from the history of the country in which you live, whereas my skin color condemns me to the history of the country in which I live. Oh, that's convenient.
You know, nobody's calling you a racist.
Nobody's calling you a racist. I'm just saying that you've profited off of slavery, which was based on race. That's all. Nobody's calling you a racist because you're white. No. It's just that obviously, if you have a particular skin color, you have benefited from evil acts of the past, whereas my skin color means I haven't. So I don't have anything to apologize for, while you kind of...
But there is some acknowledgement that has to happen, one. And two, you know, part of that acknowledgement is being okay to talk about it.
That's right.
Oh, that's my penance for being white. I see. So if I'm white, the only way I can make amends for being white in a country where slavery used to be a thing is by sitting there and listening and being lectured to about race. Oh, okay.
It does exist, and we have to talk about it if we're going to address it.
We have to talk about it if we're going to address it. We have to talk about a social construct if we're going to address a social construct. Okay.
You know, it's interesting. I remember as you were talking, I was thinking about a conversation I had with a white gentleman who I would say I was pretty friendly with, still to this day. I mean, I haven't talked to him in a little while.
What does his race matter? I can't wait to hear what about his race is relevant here.
And I was sharing how I've been in the grocery store and the clerk, the white clerk, you know, exchanging cash, would not put the cash in my hand, but rather put it on the counter. Almost like, you know, I don't want to touch your hand, you know. And
oh, so you're a mind reader. Gee, would this have happened, I don't know, within the last like 3 years or so? Would there be any, I don't know, grand global event that might have conditioned people to avoid direct contact with one another? Maybe? I mean, I don't know. I don't have enough context here. You obviously know that the cashier was racist, right? If the cashier had been black and had done the same thing, what would your interpretation have been then, I wonder? Oh my gosh. All right. Chicago Mike, thank you so much. White supremacy, bingo. I need to start playing bingo with this show. See, the Sunday stream, it can be anything. It's not as structured or as thematic as TEDx, so I don't have a bingo card for it per se, you know, because it's not as predictable necessarily depending on what I'm going to do. But yeah, no, there's a lot of parallels here. A lot of parallels here. Good gravy.
And I shared like that story, and I shared a couple others.
That's not a story. That's a conspiracy theory. That's a mind reading session. You are projecting onto that person a racial ideology on the basis of an innocuous action. An innocuous action that may in fact be one of respect. Maybe people don't like to be touched. Maybe that person just doesn't like to touch other people. Maybe they're, you know, who knows? Maybe it's a store policy. Who knows? But you've already made your determination primarily on the basis of that person's skin color. What does that make you?
Stories, and he's a white man.
Yeah, no, you made sure to tell us that. Yeah.
He was appalled and surprised and completely shocked and embarrassed because one, he was not aware that anything like that ever happened to Black people. He had no idea, you know, and almost was on the verge of tears hearing about it and hearing that it had happened to me, someone that he, you know, cared about and respected.
Why would he care about and respect you if, wait a second. First off, this guy sounds like a wuss. Second off, this guy sounds like a simp. And lastly, again, he's going along with your theory that the person's motivation in placing the money on the table was based on your skin color. You don't know that. You have absolutely no way of knowing that. You are making that accusation of that person's character in the absence of any other information. You are doing that. And you want to move past racism, right?
And I'm like, oh yeah, and that's nothing. Like, and compared to some of the issues that I've personally faced.
Well, given that this is your premier example of an injustice you've faced, and given the thin veneer of justification for your offense that you've given us, I can only imagine how believable and consequential all the other issues you might have in your library are. Someone put money on the table instead of in my hand. How dare you, you ravagely nasty racist. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I walked down the street and been called the N-word in a diverse city.
Just out of the blue? Okay. In a diverse city. Just somebody singled you out, just out of the blue.
Like this is real.
Oh.
I've been married for 32 years.
Okay.
Our first year of marriage, we lived in a city in North Jersey.
Okay.
And I will never forget this. I was home by myself.
Yes.
And my husband was at work or wherever he was. And somebody came and was kind of standing and hovering like outside of where we lived and was yelling, N-word people, go back to where you came from.
Wow.
I am not kidding you.
Oh my gosh. I had a guy walking down the street yelling and screaming at nothing the other day. Right. And obviously that guy is representative of everybody in society. Yeah. Crazy racist person yelling and screaming outside. I've been there. And I ignore them because they're crazy and they're racist. And
it was just unbelievable. And at the time, we were young. We didn't have a car, and so we would walk to the grocery store. The grocery store was walking distance,
right.
And we would walk to the grocery store. And I'll never forget, we walked out of our house and headed down the street that we lived on.
Right.
And there was a white woman with her children, and she took her children and pulled them away from us.
Oh,
and it was like, wow, like. In this day and time, this kind of conduct is still happening?
Yeah, this is why we really need to make sure everybody focuses on race, guys. We need to increase the importance of race in this society, not decrease the importance of race. Because what did that lady see you at? I mean, just accepting for the moment that your story is absolutely true, that the events occurred exactly as you described, that the motivation you are imprinting upon this lady is the one that you think it is. Okay. What did she see you first as in that equation? Black. Isn't that what you want? She made an estimation of your character value, whatever else, on the basis of your skin color. That's what you are advocating for. It just happened to be a negative one. But you still want people to see you first and foremost as a color and not as a person, right? Are you even listening to yourselves? And
so, fast forward, to right now.
And that white guy you were talking to was crying over your interpretation of the actions of a white person and freaking out. Because, a white person did this to a black person. Oh, how is that any different than the lady pulling her kids aside on at least your theory that you were black and all she saw was black? All she saw was your race and she reacted. All he thought about was the races involved and he reacted emotionally. And for no other reason. Do you see the common element here that would be great if we could just get rid of entirely in interacting with one another?
Not that long ago, I was doing some shopping at an outlet,
Mm-hmm.
and in several different stores that I walked in,
Uh-huh.
people came up to me and asked me
Yeah.
where they could find something in the store, making an assumption
Wow.
that I worked there.
Mhm.
Oh, you know what? That happened to me. You know why? I was dressed nice in a store once, and someone assumed I was an employee because I wasn't dressed casually. How were you dressed? How did you carry yourself? Did you carry yourself in a professional manner? Did you look like you belong there or something? So obviously it was your race. It wasn't your appearance. It wasn't the way you carried yourself. It wasn't your style of dress or anything. You know. Now here's a trick for you. Go into a Target store wearing a red shirt and a pair of beige pants. All right. See how often someone's going to come up to you thinking you work there. I mean, but obviously it's because you're black, right? I mean, you tell me earlier that the first thing you want me to know about you is your skin color, that it's part of your identity. And then when people you think are reacting to you because of your skin color, now they're in the wrong? What? They're making an assessment. You think they're making an assessment of your value and position in society on the basis of your skin color. They think they already know something about you because of your skin color. But you want people to identify each other as skin colors. And don't you already know the character of someone who's white? Right? Do you see the problem here? Even if you're absolutely right, it's the future you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's today.
Yeah, today.
And so when we say we need to have a conversation,
Uh-huh.
this isn't just from the 1950s, which I wasn't around, right?
No.
Yeah, but you want to bring them roaring back, apparently. Let's talk about race. Let's talk more about race, guys. We really need to talk about it's very important. Thank you, Chicago Mike. I wore a red shirt in Target once. Damn describe. Yeah. I mean, in the one instance, maybe they didn't put money in your hand out of respect. Maybe they don't assume that people like to be touched. Maybe there was some kind of, I don't know, global pandemic taking place where people were less inclined to make physical contact whenever they didn't have to with people. I don't know. You didn't give us enough context. And in the store case, like I say, I have seen people, I've been with people who have been approached thinking that they're an employee because they were dressed like they belonged in the store. They were wearing a fancy outfit or something, right? They didn't look like a casual customer. They looked like somebody who was supposed to be there operating the store. Did you walk into these places dressed professionally? That'd be my first question. Because of all the things that can conceivably denote a place in society or elsewise to people, first, more than anything else, it's how you dress. Did you or were you dressed professionally? Could someone have made the honest mistake of thinking that you were an employee because you were dressed nicely in a retail environment? Because I have seen that happen countless times to myself and others. I've made that mistake before, right? I walked up to somebody who I thought worked in the store because they were dressed in like nice shoes and a pantsuit or whatever, and they looked like they were all put together and they were going through the stuff. And I was like, excuse me, can you help me? And they're like, oh, I don't work here. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You know, I jumped to a conclusion. I think it was an honest mistake. But no, you have to go to everybody's racist. Everybody's racist. This is how you move through the world. Anything that makes you feel like you're being singled out for some reason, they're a racist. What if it had been a black person who came up to you asking you that same question? What would you do then? Would your head explode?
No,
Let the record show. I'm not old,
No,
but
you're not.
you know, the fact that in this day and time,
Yeah.
people will still make comments
Yep.
or make assumptions or stereotype.
Oh, you want to talk about stereotypes? Let's go back to the part where white people have to take responsibility for the sins of the past and black people don't. Good gravy.
Based upon what they see, that tells me we need to be having some more conversation.
You are assuming white people are inherently racist because they didn't put money in your hand. Who is stereotyping who here? What? Wow. Wowie, wow, wow. In fact, I think that deserves an official
Wowie, wow, wow.
Yeah.
People.
And so what do you think is the way for us to start having these conversations? So, there are those that are deniers and they are not maybe comfortable or they're not aware. So where do you think we start with?
Yeah, how do you start? I mean, I don't deny that the DEI process apparatus whole movement exists. I don't know why you're calling it denial. It'd be more like DEI skepticism, or use at the beginning, DEI resistance. I call it deniers, like they're climate deniers or something.
With those conversations.
Yeah.
I think kind of like what you and I are doing right now.
Oh yeah, what you guys are doing right now is totally turning the page on how I see the entire DEI philosophy. Boy, oh boy, yeah, what you're doing right now is really. Yeah.
We start these conversations in different ways. Sometimes we may bring up a scenario or a situation.
Like someone putting money on the table and not in your hand?
And let people kind of grapple with what might be going on. Sometimes helping people to understand how privilege has worked in society.
Yeah. How privilege has worked in society, where you can make an entire business plan and revenue stream off of promoting racial identitarianism. Boy, oh boy, what a country, as Yakov Smirnov used to say. Derek LaRue says, your chat is the best chat. Just saying. I think so. I mean, I think I'm biased, but, at the same time, I think it's a justifiable bias. My chat is best chat. I was just thinking, just a tangent for a second. I was just thinking today how I close out every show, or at least as far as I can recall, saying something to the effect of, moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. I was just thinking, I wonder how many times, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying this, aside from like bots that show up in the chat to spam, I was trying to think, how many times have I ever actually had a problem in chat, like a problematic, quote unquote, individual or something? I could probably count on my one hand how many times that has become an issue beyond a momentary blip in the 6 years that I've been doing this. Even on Lords of the Night, I was trying to think of like any major, and of course we did a show every night, so there might have been some and they just kind of went over my head. But as far as my channel directly is concerned, yeah, as far as my audience, as far as you guys, your interactions with each other, with me, your attitude overall, I'm not particularly religious, but I've been blessed in that regard. So just as an aside, and because Derek LaRue brought it to my mind, thank you guys for being so cool and being awesome. And even, here's the thing, here's the sign to me of where things are really good. Even in the instances where I've had viewers, longtime viewers, leave comments that are in opposition or in correction or an argument with something that I've said or otherwise, it's always been respectful. You'll occasionally get some random person I've never heard of before who just came across the title of the video and say something goofy or whatever. But when it comes to actual thoughtful exchange, my audience is amazing. Like either in correcting me or enhancing something that I've said or opposing it, or oftentimes someone who knows a heck of a lot more about a subject that I'm looking at will come in and leave like a miniature Wikipedia article not literally, but of their own experiences or knowledge to enhance or underscore whatever it is that I was talking about. And, 9 times out of 10, I'm pinning that comment for anybody else's reference who comes along and sees the video, because it just enriches the entire thing after the fact as a sort of a PS, a postscript to the whole deal. And so, yeah, anyway, I'll stop gushing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, over my audience, but I just want to thank you guys as that thought occurred.
Which, of course, is a whole nother conversation.
Sorry, what was the whole other conversation that we're not going to get into? Sorry.
I like what you and I are doing right now. We start these conversations in different ways. Sometimes we may bring up a scenario or a situation and let people kind of grapple with what might be going on. Sometimes helping people to understand how privilege has worked in society, which of course is a whole nother conversation that we, aren't going to delve into right now today. But
aside from splitting up people on the basis of race over how they've benefited from slavery, but nah, we're not going to get into that today.
But still something that is really, real and present.
Yeah. I think I like that, because I think it's really like not shrinking back from what is actually happening. I have a very good friend who is a very fine teacher.
What color are they? I mean, we've already established this is a very important thing to know about this person or any people we're talking about. So what race are they? And I'm not asking because I need to know, but it's apparently important to you guys that everybody knows where everybody stands in these examples and conversations.
She's a white woman in a...
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I'm glad we had that cleared up. I wasn't quite sure how to assess what I was about to hear if I didn't know what the person's skin tone was. Okay, thank you.
She teaches in a suburban district. She teaches, last year it was predominantly white class, and there was one African-American student who just was not experiencing success. And she couldn't figure out why the parent was responding in the way that that she was. And
I need some details. Is it good? Let me guess. Is the answer racism?
So, I had to have a conversation with her around, some experiences that African Americans have had with school systems, and Black boys being overly, classified, overrepresented in special needs classes and underrepresented in advanced classes, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, in a few weeks. But having that conversation.
Was this kid special? I don't have enough information to know what she's talking about. How the mother reacted to the kid's performance. Well, what was going on at home? I mean, okay.
And not judging her, one, for not thinking of it, and not saying that she's a bad teacher or that she's a racist teacher.
But I'm not saying you're a racist teacher. I'm just saying you're completely ignorant of Black people and what obviously Black people experience, because this kid's individual situation is reflective of all these other elements, which may or may not actually be a part of this kid's life. So, through the mystic chords of memory, this kid was underperforming in this class because, and I'll just stipulate for the sake of argument, because on average, Black boys are overrepresented in special ed classes versus advanced classes. How exactly does that work? So I'm at a lot. You have to explain that one to me. Instead of going over this specific kid's case, you are generalizing on the basis of race. Are you listening to yourself? You are dehumanizing that kid by reducing him down to a race and a gender and not paying attention at all or even caring about the specific circumstances that kid is living in. Maybe there are other factors that are leading to him doing badly in that class. But are you willing to even consider that possibility? No. We already know the answer. You see, I heard this story from this teacher and I already knew what this teacher didn't. I didn't have to think that hard. I didn't have to look into it. I didn't have to talk to the kid, talk to the parents. No, I already knew because of his race and his gender.
Because she's not. I think there were just some things that she was just unaware of. Like she didn't understand why the mother was not as receiving or accepting of some of the suggestions that the school had for her son. And I just had to teach her about sort of the historical distrust.
Right.
So that individual mother was resistant to the suggestions because of historical distrust. Okay, so the mother was correct in not accepting whatever advice this teacher was trying to give. How do you know the mother wasn't racist against the teacher because she was white? Oh, wait, I forgot. You can't, there's no such thing as reverse racism. Yeah. Are you listening to yourselves? You want to talk about stereotypes? You want to talk about generalizations? You want to talk about monolithing people? Making assumptions of someone's capabilities or otherwise on the basis of, you never even talked to this kid, but you already know the barriers that exist because of his race and his gender. And that it's not his fault, that he has no responsibility for his own studies. It's the school's fault. It's the historical distrust's fault. Okay, when do you expect that student to improve? And on what basis?
That African Americans have had with the school systems. And so, but that took, openness, and it took vulnerability on her part, I think, to say, I'm having an issue here. And it also took me, who I could give her some context, to not make her feel bad.
No, you don't have to feel bad that you're completely ignorant of assessing your student first and foremost on the basis of his race and knowing that obviously he can't help himself. It's just reflexive. It's just ingrained in people that look like that to behave in that way. It's not your fault. Good. Are you? Oh, God. Shadowclaw. I am half Puerto Rican and half Caucasian. I also have learning disabilities. My mom still gave a crud. Some parents don't care for their kids. Yeah. And here's the thing. Care and or apathy, no race. KNOWNO race. They know no race. This isn't racial specific. It could be culture specific. It could be family specific. We don't talk about Bruno. But just to dismiss it all and already know, oh, I'm the genius. I know exactly what's going on because I know the color and the gender of the student. Obviously, there's no responsibility there for the student to do their own work or to improve their grades. There's no responsibility for the mother or the parents to take an interest in their child's education. No. Obviously, their distrust, their distance, their dislike is justified. Because I know that. I can read the tea leaves. Good gravy.
And to not kind of denigrate her or to not judge her based on, what she did or did not know. And it really kind of opened the door up to really good conversation.
Yeah, I'm just going to let you know you're completely ignorant about the racial realities that this boy is experiencing. A boy I've never met and a mother I've never spoken to, but I already know. You're just ignorant because of your race compared to their race. If you were a black woman, you'd already know this. If you were a black woman, you'd already understand this. That knowledge would be just, blessed upon you by melanin count.
Around race in school. Yeah. And I think that those are the kinds of conversations. People attend conferences, but very often when there's an equity conference or an anti-racist conference, those are the believers.
Yes.
They're coming because they want strategies. They're not coming for their minds to be changed.
No, though they are the true believers. You're right. It's almost like it's some kind of quasi cultish religious belief system based around race. I wonder if I can think of any other quasi-religious, cultish belief system based around race that had some kind of significant effect on American society. That's too far afield.
Right.
They're the believers.
Yeah.
And so we know people who are DEI deniers. And I think it starts in these conversations.
It does. And quite honestly, it's not just in the education system. It's in all systems.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, some years ago, I served on a board for, women of color in the pharmaceutical industry. And I think I've shared that with you in the past. And their issues were centered around health inequities.
Yes.
And we know that there's a lot of health inequities. And many years ago, before going into education, I worked in the area where we were looking at the infant mortality rate, which, by the way, is still an issue in the Black community. Back then, this was like nearly 30 years ago when I was working in this sector. We were addressing the community around Black infant mortality. Today, 30 years later, we're still addressing issues of Black infant mortality.
And the Black infant mortality is caused by racism? I mean, we are operating with the statistical God of the gaps theory here, right? That if there's a disparity between things, therefore racism, sexism, ageism, whatever. Is that it? I don't know.
And that has a lot to do with some of the health inequities that exist in the Black community.
Right, because all doctors and hospitals are racist, right? I mean, if something goes wrong and it applies to someone who's not white, obviously racism, dollars in hand, not on the table.
And so, this issue of race, we kind of talk about this. That came up when COVID hit.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like we saw that, right? So the inequities that existed were exacerbated. So if there was, challenges with health, we saw that, I think, was it Jesse Jackson? Somebody said that when America catches a cold, the Black community catches pneumonia or something like that.
I can't remember who said that, but
but we saw that. I mean, literally, right? When COVID hit. And so we saw that these
because COVID's racist, guys. Yeah, it's not that everybody and their brother was staying away from hospitals, staying indoors because they were fearful, And if you want to talk about like historical whatevers, okay, well, why aren't you bringing up? I mean, if you're going to give a pass to a student and his parents over his educational outcomes because of historical distrust, well, what about the historical distrust of the American government in medicine towards Black people? Okay. I mean, if you're going to use one, you have to at least accept the possibility of the other, right? So maybe it's more distrust and fear than intentional action. Are you going to at least allow for that possibility in your grand calculus of what the motivations are in the world?
These inequities were exacerbated.
We also saw a lot of deniers.
We saw a lot of deniers,
where people were saying that this wasn't real.
Yes.
I don't know anybody that's been sick from it or who's died from it.
Right.
But almost every Black person I knew somebody who died from it.
Yep. Or had severe complications as a result of the virus.
Right. So everybody else was lying and the virus is racist. Got it.
I knew several people who died from COVID. During the height of it, before there were, vaccines, and it was, it was sad,
devastating,
very devastating.
It was devastating, and I think that's a challenge, right? So, if you denying it doesn't make it not happen.
Okay, your whole denial thing is misstated. Okay. Skepticism and resistance to the ideas behind diversity, equity, and inclusion is not denial of race, is not denial of you're going way, way beyond the remit of this entire thing. And there's only 5 minutes left in this thing, more or less, but I'm at my limit, both time-wise and sort of absorption-wise. I'll take a minute or two here for you guys, and then we will wrap up. SWD 40. I was put in speech class because I slur my words and don't enunciate. I wonder if I lost valuable time and knowledge missing what was in the regular class, all because my S's weren't the clearest. Right. Like, of what major utility and worth was that? or did that have to preclude your actual education? What if they took you out of regular school to do that, rather than have 30 or 40 minutes after class or after school or something with a tutor or something else, right? What was the point? It doesn't change your ability to understand information, right? So yeah, I knew kids like that, where they had separate classes and they put them over there for things that were there was no need to do that. So I'm sorry that I had several instances where I got on reflection screwed over by the public school system in what could possibly have been my better education. I was in the gifted class, for lack of a better phrase, in elementary school. And so in 6th grade, we were doing pre-algebra. And then I move on to junior high, which was a different school. And for some reason, that didn't carry over, and they put me back into basically remedial math for some reason. To this day, I don't know why. I figured it was some kind of paperwork mistake or something. But my little kid brain didn't really understand. So over the summertime, I come into this math class I was assigned to by the school, and I sit down, and it's all really easy. But then I get really bored because I've done this stuff before, and whatever momentum I had in doing pre-algebra before I entered junior high was completely lost, and I had trouble with math thereafter because I got I never liked it in the first place. I was always much better in my facility with vocabulary and language, but I certainly gained an antipathy for math after that because I just got frustrated and I didn't care anymore. But sometimes, let's see. Some Amnil Nation. What if all the black people she talked to that knew someone that died from vid were all referring to the same person? See, I can create theories too. It's just, but that's all beside how we treat each other, right? I mean, how do you want people to look at you? You've told us you want us to see your skin color as a factor of your identity. What is that supposed to tell me? What am I supposed to divine from your skin color as to who you are? That statement she made way at the beginning of this thing is really the crux of the entire deal. If that is the point you are starting off with, that is not a healthy way to see the world or other people. That's just my opinion, but let's see. Advocatus Diaboli. I don't know a single person who got or died from COVID, and I say no in the traditional sense. I know people who have gotten it. I do not know anyone directly who has died from it personally, but that's just anecdotal. And, my family and social circle isn't exactly gigantic, so that doesn't say a whole heck of a lot. But Ranting Monkey's already gotten in some major trouble for talking about this subject, even though I thought we were long past that. YouTube has completely dunked his channel on it, got him a community strike for talking about this. So I'm probably going to shy away from my own preservation. Super Koopa, this is why I hate bringing attention to my being black. I'm not an identitarian, yet I'm endlessly being spoken for. Yeah, it's like your skin color doesn't give you some kind of license to make declarations on behalf of an entire demographic, as though you know anything more than the next person. It just doesn't, right? Just like anything David Duke ever said about the differences between white and black people somehow are now representative of my thinking or something. Like David Duke is my spokesman. It's nonsense. It's not a way to treat yourself or others. And anybody who comes out and says these things, speaking as a, and then fill in the blank with whatever demographic. I mean, whenever someone does that, I just roll my eyes. It's like, no, speak for yourself. Don't pretend that you represent anyone other than yourself. And don't pretend that your skin color says anything about you that I need to then carry over to someone else. Like, anyway. It's all the same. As a white man, like, so Donald Trump and Joe Biden are obviously on the exact same page because, well, they share a skin color, right? That's the first thing I have to see about them. So they all belong to the same collective. I mean, I suppose if I was a racist, I could believe that, right? Right? Let's see. Kiever Dam. I mentioned him earlier, Scribelight. LOL. Who? I'm already forgetting who. Who are we talking about? Let's see. And Plague Doctor. Do you really think it was because of that, or because he was talking about she who shall not be named? Oh, okay. Well, the message that Monkey got said one thing. I don't know. And I'm not going to talk about that because it's just poison. It's not a matter of like, I want to censor myself. It's just being pragmatic. If there are things that are mentioned that are going to completely spike my channel and I have no interest in talking about them, I'm not going to talk about it. Just, David Duke. Oh, did you bring up David Duke before I did? Oh, I didn't. Great minds think alike. I was trying to think of like the most extreme example of someone who would speak for an entire demographic on the opposite side of reason or goodness. And the first name that came to my mind was David Duke. But anyway, everybody, I'm going to call it here. We're at the bottom of, a little bit over the bottom of the hour. So there you go. There is the DEI denial action plan in opposition, I guess. It's more of the same, but as I always say, and I think it's reflective of my entire point here, I look at these things because I don't assume to know what someone's going to say on the subject just because I've heard someone else talk about it. Everybody's an individual. Everybody's got their own take. And when it comes to DEI advocacy and professionals, you never know what they're going to say next. And it doesn't matter what color they are, as you've noticed over the history of my channel. But anyway, everybody, I want to thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning. Now go forth. Have a good Sunday. Have a good rest of your weekend ahead of the week. That'll come quicker than you know it. And a month end. Oh, man, Tuesday's month end, and I got a whole bunch of work spreadsheets I got to deal with. I don't want to think about it. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday. So, everybody, again, thank you for joining me. Moderators, as I said before, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved and have built such a nice community that's a friendly place to hang out. I appreciate it. Everybody who donated, either to myself or, I forgot. Of course I did. Why wouldn't I? The fundraisers at the top of the chat box. I made sure to pin them at the top of the show, and then I forgot to mention them. Everybody, if you could take a moment to take a look at the two links at the top of the chat box, raising money for our friends, Moonshock and Angry Illinoisian. They, their friends, and their families could certainly use some help because of some medical catastrophes that have befallen them. But even if you can't donate, and it's understandable, all things considered, if you could at least share those links out on social media if you have the opportunity. Thank you guys so much for your attention to that. And with that, everybody, I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday, a good rest of your weekend. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.